Rocks a Million coming in for another segment of Rocks a Million Unleashed. You know they gave me the keys and I am unlocking doors. We're having a series in the Black History Month of Black excellence in our Black churches. Today I've got a treat for you. I am over in Markham, Illinois with one of the baddest preachers on this side of heaven. He my pastor, Pastor Dr. Dale E. Lawson of Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church. I want you to get a pen. I want you to call a friend. I want you to stay tuned in. We're going to talk to Dr. Lawson today, not only about churches, but we're going to talk to the pastor, we're going to talk about the people, and we're going to talk about the power of our Black churches. I want to introduce to some and present to others, none other than our guest for today, Dr. Lawson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Roxy, for having me on. Thank you.
Today, I want to just, have a fireside chat. I don't think many people get to see our pastors kind of after the pulpit. And so this is kind of the backdrop, Pastor Lawson. I am committed to showing the excellence in our Black churches. Yours is a beacon of light here in Markham. Talk a little bit about what Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church has been in the city of Markham, Illinois.
Well, Christ Temple was one of the first Black Baptist churches in Markham. When Markham started as a little village, and it grew from there. From this church, the first Black mayor came from this church. The first Black chief came from this church.
Wow.
And so there's a history here in Markham when Wood was a highway, thoroughfare for cars to come through traveling to and from interstate. And so by it being a little bit, it has grown since that time. And Christ Temple started as a little white frame building. Pastor McKinney, Princeton H. McKinney founded this church on this corner. It was a real estate office.
Wow.
And they had just made their last sale from the houses in the area. And Pastor McKinney was looking for a church, and the proprietor said, you can have this building free of charge. So they started the church on this corner in a little white frame building, and it's grown from there, 1959 and up until the present date. And so down through the years, Christ Temple has been a focal point of leadership for the Black community in the South Suburban area, being one of the first Black churches in the area, as I forestated. And down through the years, we have prided ourselves in reaching out to the community, reaching out to people in their need, and doing things of this nature, and then really building the inner person, building up each other, building up our fellow man, and doing those things that would be along the lines of what Jesus talked about,
Right.
and reaching out to the masses, going out into the world and reaching others, bringing them in.
And what I saw, I came into I think you guys did one of the largest parades I've seen in the Southland. I came into one of the parades where that you all had food, you had fellowship, you had leadership on, I think, I forgot which park district it was. I think it's out here in Markham. But it was, I thought it was the Markham Festival. It was a grand event, and I just admire churches that are giving back. Talk a little bit about what Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church does to give back to our communities.
We give back to the community through benevolent outreach. We raise our benevolent offerings to help those in need. From time to time, during the week, people will come by the church. They need help with their rent, their utilities, and so forth for food.
Wow.
And we have, in the past, we've had a Thanksgiving basket giveaways, families during the Thanksgiving time, during the Christmas time. We reach out to the nursing homes. We've had in the past where we are reinstituting our prison ministry, as well as nursing home ministry, and to the various facilities, even halfway houses.
Oh, wow.
To reach those who are in need. And we have housed those who have been homeless. We've had connection with the hotels in the area,
Right.
able to temporarily house people in the midst of their dilemma. And so we really, really stand on the mandate of Jesus in Luke chapter 4,
Okay.
to preach the gospel to the poor and deliver those who are bound, and to preach the acceptable year of the Lord, the year of Jubilee, where people who are bound can be freed
Correct.
from their bondage in various areas of society.
And you know, in Ross Million Unleashed, I am about having a free mind and a free spirit. I mean, I come in here every Sunday and I watch this man of God go up. And you leave here better than what you came. I like the fact that you are really focused, like laser focused on the people, because we've had a great falling away from the church, right? And we get such a bad rep, Pastor Lawson,
Yes.
that the churches are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it amazes me that nobody reads the Bible like they used to, because we are doing
Yeah.
what we're supposed to do. I mean, we're taking care of the widows, we're helping those that are in prison, we're doing all of the assignments that are outlined in the Bible. However, Christ's temple has gone, when I talk about black excellence, you guys have gone above and beyond. And it's a church atmosphere that is filled with a lot of love. Talk to me about your experience as a pastor that makes you just exhibit that level of love in your leadership. Everyone's friendly, everyone's welcoming. That, that just don't happen. That's leadership down. Talk to me about how you have, is it a formula? Is it something you're doing that maybe we can get to the younger preachers coming in this to look as clean as you look, but don't understand that there's wisdom and there is a lot of attention that goes into pastoring people.
Well, I began to see people as Jesus saw them,
Okay.
as people who need leadership. He said he saw people without a shepherd, who needed a shepherd. And to me, every individual needs leading and guidance and support and help. And I guess my experience in life helps me to exhibit this love to others. And if you're showing love, then love catches on. And I think part of that how the church loved me initially. When I began, I accepted my calling, and this church sent me to seminary. They paid my tuition, and I thank God for that. And as a result of that, I wanted to give back.
Now, you hit a point that I had on another show. I say, even as a minister, I think like a banker. If I invest, I want a return on my investment. How many of our churches now are sending their leaderships to seminary? How many of our preachers, because that's the big dilemma we have with the younger preachers. They feel that they just went, they weren't sent. And so I think I want to really highlight that about you, is that you took the time to hone your craft, to master what you're doing for Christ. Right? And our younger people think they can just get in and they got homeneutics and homiletics and hoop and holler, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it takes so much more underneath all of that to be able to carry a church as long as you've carried a church. If there was something in legacy, if there was a legacy letter you would send to a younger preacher coming into this profession, what might you say, Dr. Lawson?
Well, in that letter, I would first of all encourage them to get as much education as you can, to draw from Bible college or seminary, whatever one you're able to go to. They have so many corresponding courses now, online courses that you can take as well. But prepare yourself for the ministry. It's more than just hooping. It's more than just wearing the robe or being in the pulpit on Sunday. It's more than just having your name called, having the best seat in the house and all the accolades and all the things that come with that. But it is more or less seeing people as Jesus saw them. When I served as a hospital chaplain, one of the statements that I made when I got certified, they said, how do you view ministry in the hospital? I said, I view myself as Jesus. As he went through the villages throughout the week. Every room I went in was a village.
Correct.
It was a woman at the well. it was the blind, it was the leper, it was the cripple. And so that's how I viewed my ministry. And when I became pastor, I transferred that over. And so we see ministry is ministry. And so get that education. One pastor told me when I was a young minister, not sure I was going to pastor, didn't know what to do, and I had the opportunity to go to seminary. And I told him what my struggle was. He said, well, listen, he said, if God does not call you to pastor, he said, go get the credentials that you need.
Amen.
So if a church opens, you'll have what you need.
Correct. And I want to put a pin right there, is that this is something, I say this, if you work for God, and I worked for him most of my life, you'll never be unemployed because he ain't going out of business.
Right.
But to do God's business, we have to do it with a spirit of excellence. And excellence, if you're going to play basketball, they make you train. If you're going to box, they make you train. They make you spar with other people so that, not that they're trying to irritate or your talent, but they're trying to hone it so that you're masterful in the craft that you're in. And I just believe in education. I believe that our young people who are coming in the ministry need to hear you today. Put a pin right there. Education in this thing is necessary, and you're hearing it from a seasoned pastor that you have got to dedicate the time in order to be a masterful pastor of people, because it ain't about you, it's about the people. I just had to get that in there.
That's all right.
All right? Because sometimes we get a little off, that it's all about us. We get a title and we think that it's about us. I look at ministries with people's names on them, and I be like, what Christ at in that, you know? And so we have to speak the truth and say that it's all about Christ. And really, we are just the representatives. We're the ambassadors.
That's right.
And so how do we represent him? Yes, you about the cleanest preacher I know in Mark. I don't think I've ever seen you out of order yet. You and your wife, I have one day to catch y'all slipping. But for the most part, it's not imaging. It's who you are. It's who you've become, Dr. Lawson. And that's where the respect for the pulpit really begins. We have had a great falling away from the church, but it's pastors like yourself that will win our people back, because you are people focused. And I think any pastor, especially the younger ones, become people focused is what I hear Pastor Lawson talk about. Well, I want to talk about the pastor. What is it like pastoring people? This is Roxamelia Unleashed. You could just be yourself, Dr. Lawson.
It's a challenge. It's difficult.
Yes.
It's exhausting because you don't feel that people get it. As much as you preach and teach, as much as you serve, as you visit, as you pray, as you conduct funerals and weddings and visitations and things of that nature, as you step in when ministry leaders are not there and you lead that ministry, then it's a difficult task.
I really want to do real talk, because you all make it look so great, but nobody ever gets this opportunity that I have today to just talk to one of the pastors when there's nobody in the sanctuary, and hear the real response. Here's the question that I have for every pastor I've interviewed: who shepherds the shepherd? When you all are tired and when you all are exhausted, who shepherds the shepherd? And many of us don't take heed to the first ladies, because they're bearing a burden that's a little different. And they're the ones that have to keep you guys, getting up and continually smile when you ain't happy, and kneeling when you ain't really humble, and so, here we are at a time when we have a lot of churches in the Black community. But everyone does not have the mission. Everyone does not have the core values that Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church have. And I'm just wondering, how do we have this many churches in our communities and our people are still in trouble?
Yeah. And a pastor needs to have an humbleness.
Okay.
And I thank God for my wife. She helps me to stay humble.
Yes.
When she thinks I'm getting a little bit too, you know, and remind me, you're not all that, you know.
You know what? I want to say hi to the First Lady, Evangelist Valerie Lawson. You all know that he would not be sitting here if there was not a she undergirding all of this power in this
Amen.
pastor.
Amen.
Hi, Evangelist.
Yeah, and on that note, doing the menial tasks, those things that seem to be trivial, is another thing young preachers need to know. You don't just go up there. I heard, my wife and I, about a young pastor who just started this church. He'd been a little over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And he demanded that they give him so many thousands of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
a new house, and a new car.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been there a year
Mm-hmm.
and making all these demands. And so I think these younger preachers, they need some humbleness. They need to be humble. They need to accept the fact that they're not all that, as the kids say, in a bag of chips.
Ooh,
You see?
y'all heard that.
But that they're human, and the people that they are serving, they need to learn to grow to accept you.
Correct.
When I first became pastor, even though I'd already been a minister and served here for 15 or 20 years before then,
Mm-hmm.
I was still not accepted as pastor
Correct.
by everyone.
Correct.
I had to win the trust.
Correct.
And sometimes some people had to leave, some people had to transition, some people had to go before I was able to really become pastor,
Correct.
technically.
Correct.
And more than position, and then more so with power.
And see, I want to explore that because as a minister myself, I've witnessed that a lot of our younger preachers don't want to sit under, right? They want to be in your seat, but they don't want to sit under that leadership long enough so that when they are assigned, they are prepared. They feel that they are equal. I talk about this all the time. They come in just because they know the Bible and they slick with it, and they feel like they're just as equal as a pastor that's been doing this for 20, 30 years. And they're really not.
Right.
And it shows up in the humility. It shows up in how they care for the people in the church. And it also shows up on how they care for the things of God.
Right.
You know, and when we talk about people leaving the church, a lot of time they're not leaving because Christ wasn't there. They're leaving because somebody else is there.
Right, that's right.
And so when you talk about the preachers that feel that they're the cats meow and the dogs bow wow, and so they come in with these resumes, they come in with these writers, they come in with all of these credentials, right? And they feel entitled to say that I demand and this is, if you want me, this is what it's going to cost. It ain't never cost us to preach the gospel now. And so we have to visit that in the black churches, Dr. Lawson, because if we don't get that fixed, we're going to have even more problems. And I'm just wondering, from a seasoned pastor, is there anything in place where the younger pastors can come underneath a seasoned pastor as legacy to learn what you learned? Do we have federations still? Do we have opportunities for them to experience folks that have already been where they're going?
Well, we are part of a local district,
Okay.
Grady Durera Baptist District Association. And they're the minister and pastor division,
Okay.
where even now there's a program where every fifth Sunday, those associates, the ministers, have opportunity to preach
Okay.
at churches within the district. And then while they're there, they're being critiqued by seasoned pastors.
Good.
By the same token, there are those programs where they can be trained as a chaplain,
Right.
as a chaplain, a hospital chaplain, whatever the case may be, to know the ministry is more than the pulpit. Trained in prison ministry,
Correct.
trained in outreach in other areas, to know that it's not just the pulpit. Some of the young preachers, as you stated, quote unquote, they don't want to do simple tasks.
They don't want to do the work. It's a personality contest or something.
Yeah.
You know, if I can get more people to like me, then I'm the next, you know, I'm the new and improved. And I don't really think that they understand. I came out of a church on 100 in Halsted, Dr. Mobley. His brother was actually Gene Mobley, and his son was Emmett Till.
Mhm.
And so I learned a lot walking under a seasoned minister.
Mhm.
There is just a lot to gain. And many times your struggle is a little different than what ours would be. You won't make it a little easier for us
Mhm.
if we'll just sit still.
Yeah.
You know, and I would hope that every minister that's watching Rocks a Million Unleashed get the information that you cannot just come out and be. You know, you basically still need those interconnections that someone sponsors you. See, that's the difference. When you talk to most of the ministers, I'm going there, you see me coming.
Right, right.
You talk to most of the ministers that come in your church and you say, who ordained you?
Mhm.
Where did you come from?
Right.
You will not see that legacy. They just created a ministry, got some business cards on the website, and got out there and thought they could be, you know, T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
And I think we need to pull that back, Dr. Lawson. I mean, it's my show. I can just say, I think we need to pull it back.
Yeah.
And get a better understanding that there has to be a lineage that you come on. You can't just come up and say, I'm minister so and so, and you have not been you have not worked under a seasoned pastor. You have not been in a church long enough to say that you really know how to rightfully divide this Bible. You know how to exegete a text.
Right.
Many of us are just doing what feels good, and this is why people are destroyed. Because you got ministry. Now, I listen to your word, but I can tell you some of your little 4 points you put up. You know,
Yeah.
I can go back out in the street and talk to a sister that didn't come to church and tell her what pastor said. This is what I'm talking about. When you are masterful at this craft, I should be able to taste test. I should be able to take a little bit that you gave me and give a little bit to someone else. And I don't think that our ministers are focused that way. It reminds me of the story where he says somebody sowed a seed on the field, and he said, let the wheat and the tare grow up together. But you be like, Lord, it's a massive, it's a mess down here. And I feel that way in our ministries, is that if it doesn't happen where that people are really humble and submitted to leadership, I know you know what I'm talking about. It can get real messy in the church.
Because young pastors need to know you're called to serve.
That's the bottom line.
You know, when I accepted my calling, before I was really ready to accept my calling, pastor put me on the deacon board to serve as a deacon, to get me another view of ministry. Okay, sometimes sit me down to the kindergarten class to teach. I think I'm gonna be called the pastor if I want to do something in the pulpit. Well, you teach the kids.
Amen.
You see, accepting tasks like that, because all of that will help in your resume.
True.
Because working with children help you to work with adults.
Correct.
Adults are grown children.
Ooh, y'all just heard that.
And as a result, my wife and I talking about, we got crybabies in the church, adult crybabies.
Yes.
One of my seminary professors called them spiritual baby Hueys.
Yes. Yes.
You see, and they're always whining and crying about something, no matter what is done, no matter how well things seem to be, they're always crying about something.
Correct.
And so they're crybabies. Then there are those who feel, like you said, that they're above the pastor.
Correct.
And every now and then they'll show their true colors.
True.
And you have to put them in their place.
Amen.
And you have to check them. But by the same token, we have to have these young pastors to know that there is a process to be able to be up there every Sunday, that you have to do every now and then. I remember one occasion we had a fellowship, time of fellowship, Lord love, and somebody had spilled something on the floor. I went to go get the mop. I said, what you talking about? I said, look, there's something on the floor, somebody can slip and fall.
Correct.
They can sue the church.
Correct. Correct.
You're around here eating and everything else. I see a need.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Now, more than that, I had history in the past. I served in housekeeping department in
Correct.
Michael Reese Hospital.
Correct.
So I knew about all the ramifications and the pros and cons of that. But by the same token, I'm saving the church. And so doing menial that, you got some preachers, I'm not picking that up.
Correct.
And they walk around.
And Pastor, I think that they forget that the church is an organism, but it's an
Right.
organization too. And you can't just deal with the body and not deal with the administration. You have to wear different hats in here.
Right, yes.
And so just what you said, if we don't have a janitor, you are the janitor. If we don't have a babysitter, you babysitting other folks' kids, you know. And I've had a similar experience in my development in church. I had a pastor, I had a crazy, but you loved him kind of pastor. You know, he would ask you to do just the craziest stuff to see who would get it done. But being a daughter in the ministry, I also took the time to know how he thinks. So you have to outthink him.
Right.
You know, when he tell you to do something like that's already done. I did that when I came in. It's almost like living in a house. Like you don't have to ask me. Now she gonna sit there and see that thing on the floor and just keep walking over me.
Right.
I know you gonna come from the back and say, why is that there? And he taught us, in bringing females in the ministry at a time that not something to, at a time that it's not popular. That we had to be equal and more. That we had to measure up to the brothers, but we also had to take it one step further. And because we had that spirit to serve, we beat them every time. Sorry, I'm giving you the kid in the caboodle. The sisters were winning because we were serving, singing, and coming out here preaching. So we just came with a different power, and he knew that there was loyalty, he knew that there was commitment. And that's what I want to we're coming to a close, but I want to talk about what level of commitment do we need in our churches in order for pastors like yourselves to have the power to speak to the community, to change the condition of the community. Because as we were talking, I thought about how powerful the Black church used to be. And I believe that it's still that powerful now, Dr. Lawson. But what has to happen, just from your point of view, for a pastor to be supported? You talk about them managing humility. Now we're talking about them managing power, because it also equals power.
Well, that comes to us, share a little bit about it Sunday, delegating people for specific areas of ministry,
Okay.
particular tasks. They need to be equipped and trained, of course, prior to. But by the same token, give them the autonomy to serve. And when you give them that autonomy, as opposed to micromanaging, then you get more done. But by the same token, those persons should be well equipped and understand protocol.
Correct.
As you said, and respecting, honoring leadership, but yet fulfilling their task, committing themselves to the task at hand, and then supporting the overall program of the church.
Correct.
Each ministry can do their own area of service, but when there are other issues that come up, a church-wide effort, everyone should galvanize behind that.
Correct.
And when people see the unity of the church, then that's power. You see the church working together.
Correct.
That's power. The time you're talking about, they knew that when there was an issue, when it was communicated, all the churches marched, all the churches protested, all the churches boycotted. You see?
And now we're an echo instead of the voice.
Right.
We're waiting for the opportunity to say our people. I love Martin Luther King. He was a bad brother, right?
Yeah.
And courageous, much more than I would be, because I don't know if I could lay my life down. Think about it.
Yeah.
But that's the commitment of Christ, that he laid it down, that we might be here right now experiencing And I know I'm of that generation, a little fat under the belly. We're experiencing the greatness, the goodness of Christ. I just need to know from you, when we come into a level of power, do you feel that the churches will ever have the power and the strength that they once had?
I believe they can.
Okay.
You know, the Bible says we can do all things through Christ, who strengthens us.
Correct.
And if we would remain focused on what the real problem is,
Right.
realizing that it's not you against me, but it's them against us.
Correct.
And when we focus on the correct enemy, the right enemy, and focus in that direction, then you have the power
Okay.
to help to move the hands of government, the hands of the economy, because those persons in Montgomery, Alabama, those down in other areas, when they had the bus boycott, the black folks saw the power that they had by boycotting
Correct.
the businesses and the buses.
Correct.
And then the white establishment saw the power that they had and what they were losing without making some type of compromise
Correct.
and correcting the problem at hand, which was initially the bus seating on the bus, the seating, and so who sat where, black sit in the back, white sit in the front.
Correct.
And so those things, when they saw the futility of that, they were able to change it, and then brought back some peace to the Southland as a result. And that, as a result, had a domino effect to other cities as an example of what could be done.
And here we are. We sit here now. You know, my mind is racing. When you speak, I'm like, oh wow, because we have a time, and I always have more talk than I have time. But anyways, we're at a time that black mothers are still very careful about their black sons, and one way or another, the church is going to get involved. You know, either to correct that child, or to commit that child, or cremate that child. And so I'm wondering, and that's why I asked the question about the power of the church. Do we have a voice in the matter that can change the dynamic, change the narrative for our younger black boys to get back in church? See, you can't be a man except you see a man. If you don't have a daddy at home, you know how many deacons and ministers are here that would be more than happy to take you under their wing and help you with your manhood. We've got to find intervention in the church that takes them off those streets. Because I think with the material, I heard I think Evangelist Lawson talk about the materialism and the attraction of our younger generation to what flashes, just because it glitter don't mean it's gold. And they don't know the difference in the quality. And so when I'm trying to get them mentored and trying to get them manned up, I only think of the church. Because I don't think that you can have a real foundation as a man or a woman without a spiritual foundation. And so how do we win our black boys back into the church to keep them from being mowed down on the streets?
And it's a key point there. The power is in the church. But we become envious when we see other groups doing it, instead of joining with them to support them.
Correct.
There are groups out there that are mentoring our young men.
Correct.
There are some churches like one of my colleagues from seminary, Dr. Phelps in Inglewood, reaching out to those migrants.
Correct.
That's a love of Jesus.
Correct.
Even though there's some controversy in them being in the community and all that, but they have a need.
Correct.
And so some churches, I'm sure, are envious or jealous or opposed to what he's doing. But if we galvanize ourselves together, the power's there.
Okay.
But we need to come together and work with each other in order for it to be seen publicly.
You guys are tuned in to Roxamelia Unleashed. We are having a fireside chat with my pastor, Dr. Dale Lawson of Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church. It's just amazing to just hear him speak on issues that you never know a pastor was thinking about. And I want to share this with you, Pastor Lawson. When I first came into ministry, I told you my Pastor Mobley was different, and he said, "Do something different, girl. Do something different. You all went to school and you're educated and all that. Do something different." And the first thing I did in the church was I started a letter ministry to prisons, and we would write letters to the brothers that were locked up. We didn't know them, but it just be generic letters and say, "Hey, we're thinking about you." Do you know, in that year and a half, right, we grew that church out of the prison ministry. A lot of them would get out and come to the church just to see who it was that, was writing the letters. We kept it very generic, but they saw a body that wrote letters and sent them every month. And when they came out, they said, "That church, I just want to go because they showed me love when love didn't exist." Yeah, yeah. And so that was a creative way in ministry that is unorthodox, but he told me to do whatever I, felt big and bad enough to do. And I look back at that, like you're saying, if I hadn't taken that delegation, I wouldn't even known that I had that kind of power. If I had not carried out the assignment, I would not have known those people. So ministry will touch people you'll never go, places you'll never go, and touch people you'll never know. And we've got to get back to what you're talking about in serving, and in my serving, and your serving, and many of you watching Dr. Lawson and your serving. We've got to know it's all about Christ. So you will have the final words of the show. I don't know what you want to leave us with, but this Roxamelia Unleashed, you get it right here. This is news you can use. Dr. Lawson, why don't you leave us with something to think about?
Well, what I would like to say to those who are viewing, that we must continue to stay focused on what is real, what is important, in order to progress as a church, as a people, and unite together as one. We all have different gifts, abilities, different perspectives, but in order to solve a problem, everyone must work together to get that problem solved. Whatever that problem might be, if it's racism, if it's child abuse, if it's elder abuse, if it's homelessness, if it's joblessness, whatever it might be, we can galvanize together and we can do it. For the Bible said we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. Thank you.
Well, this is Roxamelia. Like I told you, we always have more talk than we have time. You guys stay tuned in to the next session on Black excellence in our Black churches. Thank you, Dr. Lawson, for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you. Oh, let me put this in. You can catch Dr. Lawson every Sunday at 16200 South Woods, Roku TV, Facebook. He's on there. Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church. Get a pen, call a friend. This is Roxamelia signing out.